The moment Sarah Chen realized she was invisible, she was standing in the middle of Grand Central Terminal, with tears streaming down her face, and not a single person stopped. Hundreds of commuters flowed around her like water around a stone, their eyes glazed with the particular exhaustion of a Tuesday evening in Manhattan. She had just received the call, stage 4, inoperable, maybe 6 months, and the world kept spinning as if nothing had changed at all. That's when she understood. We're all invisible until someone chooses to see us. 3 months later, Sarah had made peace with her invisibility. She'd quit her job at the consulting firm, stopped returning calls from friends who didn't know what to say anyway, and started spending her days at the free clinic on Amsterdam Avenue. Not as a patient, she'd decided against treatment, wanting whatever time remained to be her own, but as a volunteer. If she was going to disappear, she figured she might as well do it helping people whose society had already erased. The clinic served everyone insurance companies wouldn't: undocumented immigrants, homeless veterans, recovering addicts, sex workers, runaways, people whose stories had taken turns that polite society preferred not to acknowledge. Sarah worked intake, which meant she was usually the first face they saw, often the first person to look them in the eye in weeks or months. That's how she met Marcus. He came in on a Thursday, one arm cradled against his chest, the kind of quiet dignity in his posture that suggested he'd once been someone else entirely. Late 50s, salt and pepper beard, eyes that had seen too much. The intake form trembled in his good hand. "Need help with that?" Sarah asked softly. He looked up, startled, as if he'd forgotten other people could perceive him. Yeah, can't write so good with my left." Sarah pulled her chair around the desk, sitting beside him instead of across. It was a small thing, but she'd learned that small things were everything. "Let's do this together. Name?" "Marcus Wright." Over the next 20 minutes, Sarah learned that Marcus had been an English teacher before the recession hit and his school closed. Then his wife got sick. The medical bills consumed their savings, then their home. She died anyway. He'd been on the streets for 4 years, sleeping in shelters when he could get a bed, under the bridge near Riverside Park when he couldn't. The injured arm. Someone had tried to steal his backpack, everything he owned in the world, and he'd fought back. "You read much?" he asked suddenly as she helped him finish the form. "I mean, before all this, did you read?" Sarah smiled. "I majored in English. Switched to business because, student loans and parental expectations. But yeah, I read." His whole face transformed. For just a moment. He wasn't a homeless man with a possible broken arm. He was Professor Wright. "Honestly? When breath becomes air," Paul Kalanithi. "It's about mortality, meaning what makes life worth living when you know it's ending." Marcus met her eyes. "I read it in the public library last year. Wrecked me for a week." Sarah felt something crack open in her chest. "Me too." After that, Marcus came to the clinic every Thursday, whether he needed medical care or not. Sometimes he came to read. Sarah started bringing books from her apartment, ones she'd been meaning to reread or couldn't bear to leave unfinished. They'd sit in the waiting room during slow periods and discuss them. Morrison's Beloved, Baldwin's The Fire Next Time, Steinbeck's Grapes of Wrath. Other volunteers thought it was strange that Sarah spent so much time with one client. They didn't understand that Marcus was doing as much for her as she was for him. He reminded her what it meant to be seen, truly seen, by another human being. As fall turned to winter, Sarah's energy waned. She started bringing a thermos of tea to get through her shifts. Marcus noticed immediately. "You sick?" he asked one Thursday, his voice careful. Sarah had learned not to lie to people, who'd survived by reading the truth in others' faces. "Yeah, cancer. It's okay, though." "It's not okay." His voice was firm. "But I'm here. Whatever you need." She almost laughed. What could a homeless man with nothing offer her? But then she saw his face, and she understood. He was offering her what she'd given him: witness. The gift of being seen. In December, Sarah collapsed at the clinic. When she woke up in the hospital, Marcus was there. Somehow he'd followed the ambulance, had sat in the ER waiting room for 6 hours. The nurses had tried to kick him out 3 times. He looked homeless because he was homeless, but he'd quietly, persistently refused to leave. "She's my friend," he'd told them. "She needs someone Sarah's parents flew in from California. They were horrified to find a homeless man at their daughter's bedside. Her mother actually called security. Sarah sent them back to the hotel and asked Marcus to stay. "Tell me a story," she whispered, her voice weak from pain medication. "Tell me something true." Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then, "When my wife died, I wanted to die too. Spent a year trying to drink myself to death, lost everything in the process. One night, I was lying in an alley in the rain, hypothermic, ready for it to be over. And this kid, couldn't have been more than 16, stopped. Just some punk with a skateboard and a backpack. He took off his jacket and put it around me. Walked me to a shelter. Didn't say much, just, 'My dad died last year.' I know how it is. Never saw him again." Tears slid down Sarah's cheeks. "That's why you came to the clinic? To be that kid for someone else?" "No." Marcus took her hand carefully, as if it might break. "I came because I was still invisible. You're the one who saw me, really saw me. You gave me back my name, Sarah, myself. How do I thank someone for that?" Sarah died 3 weeks later. At her funeral, her parents were shocked. When dozens of people from the clinic showed up, patients, and volunteers and staff members. They were even more shocked when a homeless man stood up to speak. Marcus wore a borrowed suit that didn't quite fit. His hands shook as he unfolded a piece of paper. But his voice, when he spoke, was steady. "Sarah taught me that being seen isn't about being noticed. It's about being known. She knew me when I'd forgotten who I was. She sat with me like I mattered when the world had decided. I didn't. That's not kindness. That's revolution. That's changing the world one human connection at a time." He paused, looking at the closed casket. "She told me once that she felt invisible, that nobody saw her. But I saw her. Everyone in this room saw her. And because she chose to see us first, we're all less invisible now. We're all more human." After the service, Sarah's mother approached Marcus hesitantly. She held out an envelope. Sarah left instructions. "She wanted you to have this." Inside was a key and an address. Marcus looked up, confused. "It's her apartment," Sarah's mother said, crying now. "She paid the rent through the end of the year. She wanted you to have somewhere. She said you'd know what to do with all those books." Marcus couldn't speak, couldn't breathe. Sarah's father stepped forward. "She also established a fund, in your name, for a program she wanted the clinic to start. Peer mentoring for people experiencing homelessness. She thought maybe you'd want to run it. Help train others to be what you were for her." That's how the her program started. Not named for Sarah specifically, but for the pronoun that could mean anyone, because everyone deserves to be a her or him or them who matters, who's seen, who changes another person's world just by acknowledging their humanity. 5 years later, the program operates in 12 cities. Marcus Wright, program director, trains volunteers in what he calls the ministry of witness, showing up, sitting beside instead of across, reading people's stories in their faces and honoring what they find there. In his office, Marcus keeps a photograph of Sarah from before she got sick, smiling at the clinic's holiday party. Beneath it, a quote from Paul Kalanithi, the book that first connected them. "Human knowledge is never contained in one person. It grows from the relationships we create between each other and the world." Every new volunteer in the program hears Sarah's story, how she was dying and chose to spend her final months seeing people society had stopped looking at, how in being seen Marcus found himself again, how that simple act of recognition, one person truly seeing, another rippled outward into something larger than either of them alone. "We're all invisible until someone chooses to see us," Marcus tells them. "And when we see each other, really see each other, we all become more real, more human, more alive." He pauses then, looking at the young faces gathered around him. Some volunteers barely 20, some clients twice that age. All of them here because somewhere along the way, someone saw them. Someone chose them. Someone said, "You matter." "Sarah taught me that dying isn't the worst thing that can happen to a person," Marcus says softly. "Being forgotten is." So we remember. We show up. We witness. We sit beside each other in the wreckage and the beauty and everything in between. That's all love is, really. Choosing to see someone and letting them see you back. Outside, the city roars on. Millions of people flowing past each other. Around each other, barely seeing each other at all. But inside this small office, In clinics across 12 cities, in the moments when one human truly sees another, the revolution continues. One person at a time, one story at a time, one act of witness at a time. Her.